Ladies and gentlemen, this is the voice of reason. My name is Andy Van Beber. That over there is Travis Kirkendall. Sean Phillips will be joining us momentarily. He is currently in a production meeting, but we have him on the back burner. He will join us after his meeting is over. He has assured us that. And it every time we miss a week, it just seems like a gazillion things happen, and I
Yeah, I swear it's like we'll be consistent and there's like absolutely no
absolutely
news. And
nothing.
then life happens, they're like, all right, man, let's take a week off. And then all of a sudden it's like all these bombs just start dropping. It's like, oh my God.
Yeah, right.
Now we gotta play catch up.
Mm, well,
But good topics today, good
good
topics. I'm
topics
excited to
today.
get into some of this.
Well, let's talk a little bit about other stuff first. What did your weekend consist of?
So I was actually home this weekend visiting family. Got to see my grandma, got to see my dad. I couldn't see my brother. He was out of town for some big trunky convention.
Some
But I
big
was
what
actually in the
convention?
He was at some trucking convention
Oh,
down in either Kentucky or Tennessee. I don't know where.
I thought you said a
Um,
drunky convention. I was like, well,
oh no,
that's every Friday night down at
no.
McDinger's. What are you
Yeah, but I
talking
mean, that's just Saturday night at McDaniel's, or I know you used to go to Mustang Sally's quite a bit.
Well, yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I was actually in the hospital Sunday morning. My
What?
dad had to take me at like 4 a.m. Yeah, I got like Saturday night. I went to bed and I woke up and I just started throwing up like crazy, and then it got worse and worse. And not to get too graphic, but stuff started coming out both
Oh
sides, and
no, that sounds like a
I got a
nasty.
terrible, and then I got a fever. And man, my dad didn't have a thermometer, which I was pissed about. My fever was so bad. I was so delirious. My wife's trying to talk to me, and I'm like not making any sense to her. And I'm just like mumbling words. And finally, I mumbled like, "Take me to the hospital." And got in there. I went to Troy. They took really good care of me. Gave me a shot of something for the nausea and two IVs. Passed out in the bed for like 3 hours. They woke me up. I signed some papers. I was on my way, and I felt better at first. And then we were driving home, and oh my God, the fever came back with a vengeance. And I was
So,
struggling to get
so it
back.
just was just a bug then, or I mean, do you even know?
Yeah, I guess it was just a stomach flu. They were saying.
Wow.
I took Monday off work, so I was still kind of feeling it, and went back today. But
I
that was rough. I was in so much pain. It was just terrible.
I
That
had
was a
that
terrible
when I had
time.
that last bug. That last stomach bug lasted for 2.5 days for me, and that was the most.
Oh God,
I lost 9 pounds in 2 days. That's how much
it's
I.
terrible.
Yeah, it's and it's anymore.
Especially when you can't like drink the water or
Oh,
anything. Like
nope. I
you
couldn't
can't
hold
catch up.
couldn't hold
It's
water. Couldn't hold
terrible.
anything. I was close to going to the hospital myself because I was like, I'm going to be dehydrated because I couldn't hold down
At that
water.
point, you kind of have to go get an
Yeah,
IV. Like
yeah,
there's just,
yep.
it was terrible.
Oh man,
So that was my weekend.
well, that sounds like fun. Well, I
Yeah, yeah, but I got to see family, so it was worth it.
yeah. Well, last week we were not on. Last week I was on my way back from Louisville, Kentucky. Our buddy Sean was doing a wrestling promo in Louisville. He'll come on and tell us about it here in a second. But the network it's the same company that produces out in California, and they have different circuits everywhere. And our buddy Matt Edelman, he messaged me and he's like, "Hey, you need to." When Sean's in town, you need to come out, spend the weekend at my place, and meet my wife. And I want to tell you something. I That was the most therapeutic visit. Seeing just seeing old college friends. I hadn't seen Matt in probably 6 or 7 years.
Oh, that's how
And
long it's been?
yeah, oh yeah. Last time was when Briley and Bryson were really tiny, and we met up in Louisville for lunch one day, and
Mm.
we had a blast then. And Matt and I got there. I got there. That whole. I get what he says about the whole Eastern times. I can't stand. I don't know how Sean does it, but it's like oh, I'm supposed to get there at 9:30, and then 10:30, boom, and
Yeah, it
it sucks. So
sucks
that
traveling to it.
yeah, and then but the show was Sean produced the show, and it was I'm a minor league wrestling fan. I'll just put it that way. I'm not major league. I watched WrestleMania this weekend. I but it was, and Matt's not a wrestling guy at all, but we watched it, and I want to tell you something. They say, well, it's all fake and everything, and there was that aspect of it. But man, when those guys were given, they were given those chest chops, and I mean, lighten those guys up, lighten them up. A couple guys broke skin, and just it was really good though. I was entertained. Matt took me to some really neat parts of Louisville. Got to see Muhammad Ali's grave, which was really super cool, and Colonel Sanders' grave, the founder of KFC. And it's kind of funny because it's like Muhammad Ali is over here, and Colonel Sanders is like just 100 yards down that way. So it was really neat to see that and to be a part of that. But really restful weekend, and back at it. Started our first track meet yesterday, so I'm full bore, baby. I'm ready to rock.
Right on, right on.
So we have got so much. I don't know if we want to do the flyover. We'll kind of fill this out as we go. Please fill up our chat line. Our buddy Colby Coleman is on. Colby, thanks for joining us tonight. I hope one of my former students is joining. She actually asked some questions of me this afternoon about the whole Trump thing, and I told her to watch the show tonight. So I hope that she is joining in with us live as well. But here we go. So
I will say, if any point in this podcast, we're kind of like going all over the place. If you have a question about something that's happened in the past 2 weeks,
please
shoot it in there. We'll Google it right now and have a discussion about it.
Yeah,
wild times.
Our chat bar is open. I can see all the chats that come across all of our different formats. So please, and Colby has already chimed in and said indictment is a joke. Before we even get into it, let's go ahead and look at this week's poll.
Yeah, let's start there.
So the poll this week, the question I asked basically was, wrong page. Let me get to our group page. Snafu. But the question I asked was, what do you see about the purpose of this indictment? What is its, how do you feel about the Trump indictment? And our suggestions were he committed a crime and needs to face justice. 40%. It's a political witch hunt. 10%. And this is a distraction from the bigger issues. 40%. Which to me that equals up to 90. So I don't know how I don't know if somebody added a poll, but anyway, and we had a couple of comments in the questions as well, which we'll kind of dive into this couple of those comments a little bit later on too. But when I saw this, and before the show tonight, Travis, I don't know how serious you were when you said that, but are we looking at our next president of the United States? I mean,
dude, I would not be surprised.
Any other time you would be Colby's just about the same age that I am. We have seen our share of political scandal and political pariahs guys who have went down with the ship. When I mentioned one name in 1984, we've mentioned this guy before. If you get a chance sometime, look him up, Google him by name. Gary Hart. Gary Hart was a younger Democratic candidate for president who was going to give Ronald Reagan, is either Ronald Reagan or George Bush, either one, but he was going to give them a run for his money. He was, I want to say he was the governor.
He represented Colorado in the United States Senate.
Yeah.
I'm reading
Senate,
here.
Yeah, Colorado Senate. And this guy, he's got the look. He knows how to answer questions. He's very likable. His polling numbers were great. And then the National Enquirer, of all things, run a photo of him with this girl in a bikini sitting on his lap on a boat. And oddly enough, the name of the boat was called Monkey Business. Okay? So this does not look good. And Gary Hart sees the writing on the wall, drops out of the election, and pretty much out of. I mean, his political life was over after his Senate. He did not get reelected after his Senate term. I mean, I don't even know if the guy's still alive or not. If I haven't heard boo out of Gary Hart since the '80s, and I mean, and there's scandal after. I mean, you can go after a lot of these different guys, and you can look at guys who can't, I guess for me, it started with Bill Clinton. When I mean, we always called him Teflon Bill because nothing stuck to him. And I'm beginning to think that you might as well call Trump, Teflon Don. Because the person who texted me this afternoon is like, is he going to go to prison for? I said, well, first of all, I said he pled not guilty. The man is not going to go to prison. He will not see a day inside of a cell at any time. They may put him on house arrest. My wife was like tonight, she's like, you think they're going to revoke his passport? And I was like, he's not going to run anywhere. He's he's not. He's eating this up. He flew back to.
Oh yeah.
He flew back. He flew back to Mar-a-Lago tonight, and about an hour ago he was given a statement. And of course, on my Fire Stick, I get all the news channels, and I'm cycling through CNN, Fox, and the only one. Oh my gosh! Let's go to the 3-cam. We got the 3-cam going on. There he is. There he is, our fearless leader. There he is. And so, when you get 34 counts put against you, and I told him, she's like, was he gonna go to like to military prison? I was like, he's not gonna see the inside of a jail cell.
I don't see it. I don't see it.
Because first of all, this DA is a doofus in my opinion. I mean, you don't have to be the head checkout clerk at Walmart to figure out that this is and you guys know I'm not a Trump fan, but this guy and we talked about this a couple weeks ago, Travis, that this guy had his campaign paid for by George Soros, who is the Democrat god, and he's a Soros flunky, and this was stuff that happened back in 2016, and it's 34 counts of falsifying records, and and if any of the money, let me back up. The Federal Election Commission got involved. I was reading somewhere today, back in like 2020, and they took a vote, okay, after looking at the evidence, do we feel that he has violated campaign contribution laws? And there was a 2-2 split. And so the Federal Election Commission dropped their case on him. And so, this guy comes up and he wants to run this show. And I really don't know what he's going to gain from this. I mean, I don't know. I mean, we kind of touched on this before, but I mean, tell that stat about what you were saying about how much money Trump made when he was come to. What was that number?
Yeah, one of his aides apparently claims that the Trump campaign raised $7 million since the indictment, just for showing up, just for going there. 3 days since the indictment, they've raised $7 million.
Yeah, and as a this is free commercials for Donald Trump. This is free commercials. He doesn't have to say a word, but he's going to, but he doesn't have to.
No, he's getting all the media coverage right now.
He gets everything that he wants. I mean, he doesn't even have to try to paint himself out to look like a victim. I mean,
and to go off what we were talking offline when you asked me, like, or when I said I think his chance to become a president are even better now.
Yeah.
Because this whole situation just fuels into all the theories that people have been saying about Trump since he even began to run for office, that the Democrats are out to get him, the system's against us, Trump's still president for the people, and the deep state is out to get this guy.
Well, and
we don't have.
And
It just feels into all of that.
our buddy Colby Coleman just said, and this is something you and I brought up before we came on the air. He said Trump poll numbers are through the roof.
Yeah, he's up against DeSantis. I forget.
He's
I was
destroying.
reading earlier it was 57% versus DeSantis 31%.
Yeah, yeah, and
And
DeSantis
that was
has
this morning.
yeah, and if I didn't see if you guys noticed it, another Republican tossed their hat in the ring over the weekend. Asa Hutchinson, who's the former governor of Arkansas, and I'm like, great, another nobody who nobody knows anything about is going to cloud up the picture. So there's the man. I want to. We need to hear from the man, the myth, the legend, the producing, take a time out, just a quick time out here from our discussion. The production genius, Sean Phillips, production genius. I just want to.
I don't know about genius, but there and doesn't have to wear a helmet anymore. So
Is that a MAGA hat?
it is, yeah. Basically, Oklahoma stands for not that skin tone, brother. That's what it means. Unless you're a Sooner, you're not allowed to talk to my daughter.
I told.
There we go.
I told Travis we got to see each other for all of about what 45 seconds.
If that 45 seconds is pushing it.
You were and Matt had to put his dress on. He had to get back home because he had to get to work early, and his wife had supper prepared, and I made more references to him being a female body part to his face, and I lost count after about 20 birds that he flew my direction in our whole time. I stopped counting after 20, and but I told everybody earlier, Sean, that we were just really, I was really proud of your show. I'm actually looking forward. I found the channel on my Fire Stick, so I'm going to be tuning in at 11 a.m. Central Time this weekend, so I can. And my boy's like, Bryson's like, did you make it on TV? I said, well, I don't know. The camera was behind us, so I mean, we'll see. I don't know if Sean did that wide pan out, but it was. I was really impressed by the show. It was really cool.
Yeah, no, there were a couple of hiccups as far as like, that day of show was the first time we were actually in venue and kind of got to see some of the stuff. We ran into a couple of different problems. 1 second.
Parent life.
Yeah, look at that. That's dad.
I'm assuming the
that's
parent
dad.
life. I don't
that's
know.
Dad.
Parent life.
That
yeah,
was
dad.
Dad. Yeah. Jam's doing something she's not supposed to be doing.
And so we ran into some errors. Like we had a bunch of stuff that was sent to Louisville that UPS decided to not deliver on time, even though I paid to make sure it was going to be there on time. That didn't get there. It might one of those small things that you might not notice if you're not paying attention to, but our ring guy just didn't bring ring steps. Was like, oh, I didn't know I was supposed to bring them. Like, in what world? Like that's part of the ring. That's part of what we paid for is to bring the steps. For
so was that a
go.
local guy that gave you the ring, that provided the ring?
Yeah, I think he was from Cincinnati, Ohio. Yeah. So it didn't surprise me. But no, other than a couple of things like, we where we wanted to place the ring. So for those that don't know, and if you guys do tune in, and again, this will also be on our, will eventually be out on our United Wrestling Network YouTube channel as well for everybody to watch. This facility, the Norton Healthcare Sports and Learning Center, massive. To put it in perspective, it's like bigger than like a high school track, because it fits a professional.
Well, they do indoor track. They do indoor track meets there, so they do.
So it's a massive venue, and essentially our goal for television. So our goal for TV was to kind of build a studio in a corner. The problem was we were told, yes, you guys can use this corner. We get to the venue tells us, oh, we've changed our mind. You can't put the ring here because we're afraid you're going to ruin our track, which is crazy. There's tarps down. We have different things down. The track is going to be fine. So we ended up having to use the center of this massive space, and we were still able to kind of make it look condensed. that's camera magic and director magic from our director Logan. But yeah, no, the show itself went great. I'm super proud of. I
Yeah.
called up a bunch of Harley guys that I used to wrestle with, that I used to train with, made their debuts on the show. They'll be featured regulars on the show, and they're phenomenal. And I'm extremely happy for them and proud of them. Um, it's going to be phenomenal. We've got a couple of other things in the pan. I actually have a meeting tomorrow. Um, we're going to be filming a new luchador television show out here in California, that will air nationally on Australia TV. Um, I'm super excited about that. And then a couple other things that are cooking right now. So business is booming, which is great. Hopefully it continues to boom more, because the more it booms, the more I get paid. So I'm really,
It was.
really hope
I
it
was.
booms.
I was a very. I was proud. I was. It was a proud dad moment. It was. I told. I actually. That's what I texted Sean after. I said, "This is a proud dad moment for me," because it was just. It was.
No, it
It.
was funny because when we were leaving, so we got to Louisville, and then Tony and I drove back through the night
Which
to
was.
get back
That was
to
nuts. By the way.
towards St. Louis. Nah, when it wasn't horrible, um, but it was funny because I got a call from V while I'm driving, and he's like, what about, tell me about this guy? What's going on with this guy? I really like this guy. He was in his wrestling nerd state, which was great, and then. This whole past week has just been crazy because WrestleMania was here in LA.
Oh yeah, and
Um,
then we're communicating back and forth while he's there, and I like, well, you saw the picture, Travis. I put it up on the group chat. I put it up on the group chat, and then he sent me the picture of, and I was like, Bryson, look, Sean's at WrestleMania. What? No way! And then it was just, and then yeah, oh, it was just, that was just interesting. The last 2 weeks, just phenomenal. Like I said, check them out when they come out. When you're it, we'll definitely put some links in the.
yeah, and again, the show looks great. There's actually a couple of other things we're planning on doing too with our entrance LED things. Like there's a lot of other stuff that's going to be added to this show. Um, I am super excited. I am super proud and super grateful for everything, the opportunity to get to do it, and then to get to see UV there
For
was
45 seconds.
awesome for 45 seconds.
Yeah.
But I am glad you got to enjoy the show a little bit,
Oh
and then
man, it was
hopefully,
great. It was great.
hopefully whenever, because we will eventually do like a big show there.
God,
Hopefully I'll be able to give you enough of a heads up to
well, and
bring the kids out
I geeked out
and
enough that I watch enough wrestling that when you said, well, we've got a guy from Impact, I was like, well, I know a little bit of Impact. Then I heard the Moose's music, and I was like, no,
Moose.
and he comes out as Moose.
Moose.
Moose. I
And
was
Moose
like,
is truthfully, I got to chat with him in the back. A beautiful human being, wonderful, very polite. I mean, a lot of times in this business, especially when there's people that have kind of made it and they've made good money and they continue to make good money in wrestling, uh, you know, they'll often seem bored. Like when they're in the back, sometimes some of the guys that have been around, they're just like they could be other places they want to get in, do their spot, leave, get paid. Moose, on the other hand, was like close to sitting where I was, and by the production TV of just like still trying to learn. He's like, just like some local kids, in the area, and he's like, no, I'm really actually interested because I was talking to him, and he seems super friendly, so I want to watch his stuff. And such a student of the game and
he
a
was one of
wealth of
the
knowledge to share. Was a
he
phenomenal
was, and
person.
I thought he had the cleanest performance of the night. So I thought he was his pretty clean performance. But
Yeah, consummate professional. He's great.
anyway, so we say all that just to want to give you a little shout out there for a little
Yeah,
bit.
well, yeah, no, and so but everything's been so crazy here in LA, and I've been sick. I have been like deathbed sick. It's felt like. Thank God my pregnant Tony has been able to help me throughout this man flu season, to make sure that I'm able to keep things going. Um, it's nice. I was actually sleeping and was awoken from a little baby kick to the head. I was resting on Tony's beer gut,
Oh.
so I got a little knock earlier.
On Tony's beer gut. Oh my
And
God.
But no,
that'll come back to bite you in the ass later. I just hope you know
so
that.
it's worth it. It's been kind of crazy, and my life has been kind of caught up in wrestling the last couple of days and all that stuff. But no, so I am a bit behind on everything that's with the indictment. Now I am tracking that they have indicted him. It's 34
34
counts.
counts on falsifying official documents.
And this is all about Stormy Daniels' butthole still, right? This is what we're talking
Stormy
about.
Daniels and another Playboy model. I did not catch Travis. I don't know if you can look her name up or not, but that other Playboy model.
Careful with that search. You might have to go incognito mode, Travis.
Oh shit! Yeah.
Type it in.
No, but it was two separate accounts. And then, so I was reading this story. The original leak that started this whole thing was Trump's doorman, because Trump's doorman.
Karen McDougal.
Yeah.
Karen McDougal.
Yeah. Sean's probably got that issue somewhere.
Gary, Indiana. Oh shit.
So, see,
Close to me. Sorry.
but you know, from what I read, Trump's doorman was paid 45 grand by the National Enquirer, and this is where it all started, and that he claimed that there's a bastard child mixed in with this as well, and
Ooh.
so this, you know, and I was just bringing this up with Travis earlier. Anybody else, I just aside from Bill Clinton, I've never seen anybody who warmed up even closer to the fire, you know, which would scare anybody else off. But you know, now this is coming up, and it's huge, and it's huge. Oh, I'm sorry, huge. You can do better than me, Sean.
Huge.
Was Monica Lewinsky paid hush money?
That's a good question.
Ooh. Google.
That's a good question. I don't know if she was paid.
Because I saw a thing earlier briefly that was like, hypothetically, let's say one of these things sticks on Trump. Let's say one of them sticks.
Tongue in cheek.
Thank you. What do you think that would be like the right answer, would to just be like go all in on getting Uncle Bill like tied up with hush money on that situation?
Well, see, this whole thing to me, and I watched. If you haven't watched it, and you guys know, Jon Stewart is one of my favorite guys to watch. When you guys watch the Rogan, I watch Jon Stewart, and Jon Stewart did an interview on CNN last week, and he just said, "Let's just forget about who he is just for a second. Let's forget about who he is, because all he's going to talk about is going to be diversion, diversion, diversion. Well, what about Hunter Biden's laptop? What about Hillary's, secret server? And it's just all this thrown. Oh, look at this, look at this, look at this. When the point is, you broke the law, supposedly. But here's I want to know what this guy has. I really want to know what he has to do 34 counts. Okay.
Well, that's what I'm confused on.
It's Class A felony. Okay, so it's a minor felony. Minor felony.
But if it's so they're saying falsified documents, meaning.
So when you when you run for president,
when you take the oral office,
when you run for president, you have to document every last cent. You have to be. I mean, transparency is the word. You have to let them know where every dollar goes. And from the reports that have come out so far, what some of these, it's kind of like a shell game between Trump's personal account into his campaign account and it's like a shell game. And I mean, this guy must have some really good detectives working for him, because I don't know how.
So they're trying to say, just so I'm clear.
Yeah.
They're trying to say that he, if I'm understanding correctly, used campaign funds.
Yes, 3 weeks before the election, mind you, too. This happened 3 weeks before the election. Okay, so this is 3 weeks before the 2016 election, and whoever played the.
So hypothetically, if Trump would have came out and said, "I paid cash of my own cash to shut this chick up," wouldn't have been a problem. aside from the whole, hey, yes, I did pay this prostitute hush money.
Well,
So
and I think it was the manner in which it was delivered because it went through his attorney Michael Cohen, who pled guilty on 2 counts, and part of his plea deal was, and he's going to serve some prison time. Michael Cohen is, and
for sure.
he's he's
And what was he guilty of?
the same thing, falsifying it. He was the attorney who was delivering the money, making the payments happen.
Wasn't it the same guy that viral figure? It's like 100 times more, 200 times more,
Yeah,
500 times.
same
Is that
guy.
okay?
Yeah.
That was that. Okay.
So, and I don't. It's one of those situations where it's going to be he said and he said and she said, and I really don't think there is going to be. And I may be wrong. I've been wrong on a lot of things, but there's got to be one heck of a smoking gun that this district attorney has in his back pocket to pull out and say, "Look, I got this on you." Because at this point, this is what Travis and I were talking about before you came on. I mean, this is free TV. This is free advertisement. Trump was an hour ago was talking on. He was giving a support speech at Mar-a-Lago, but
this indictment came from a grand jury, correct?
Yes. So the federal grand jury, in any felony case, any major felony case, has to be heard by a grand jury, regardless of the state. Okay, and so. And for those who don't know, basically what an indictment is, and this is maybe basic education for some of you guys, but what an indictment is, it's not a conviction of whether you committed the crime or not. All an indictment is, a grand jury looks at the evidence that the prosecuting attorney makes. I tried to get our buddy Alex on tonight, so.
Ooh, he would make a guest to have.
Counselor, he did say he was at a convention or some meeting tonight. But he wants to be on. So we may revisit this. But from my basic understanding of how an indictment works is I believe what it's called is a presentment that the prosecuting attorney makes. He said, okay, here are the facts that we have discovered in our investigation. It's this, and this. And so the presentment today, they lay out 34 charges of falsifying documents or falsifying records or falsifying. And then the grand jury hears testimony, and here's the thing. The defense says nothing. The defense isn't even allowed in this. There's no cross-examination. The purpose of a grand jury is just for a prosecuting attorney to present their evidence to a grand jury to say, do you feel there's enough evidence to take this to trial? And if they do, they'll issue what's called a true bill of indictment. And what a true bill of indictment then is it's not saying guilty or innocent. What it is saying is and so an indictment is just, these are the formal charges that we are going to bring, criminal charges that we're bringing against Donald Trump. And what's so monumental about this is, it's never happened before. It would have happened, I'll take this back, it would have happened to Richard Nixon. It would have happened to Richard Nixon until Gerald Ford pardoned him fully. Other than Richard Nixon, this is the first time that this has even happened. So...
Travis, did you have something?
Yeah, to go back on the Clinton thing. So that was a $850,000 settlement for a sexual harassment lawsuit with a different woman, not Monica Lewinsky. So it was a settlement. It was not hush money. So I guess there's a difference. Just wanted to clarify that.
What's that?
Clinton was a good guy.
Well, according to what she said, yeah.
So this is one thing I'm trying to get my head on, because naturally when you go on Twitter, the Democrats, the left, are leaning like, this is it, he's done, he's locked away forever.
Of course, yeah.
And be an adult.
It didn't happen.
Now, but then then on the other side of the coin, I keep hearing, and I don't think it's as far as to say but the extreme right are like, oh, he's definitely going to win the presidency now. He's definitely going to win the presidency.
I'm not a fan of him. I see it though.
Here's the thing. And I know you guys briefly talked about it, but refresh me, because I don't get that side of it as much as how this benefits him. So just walk me through why, because
So this is
I
my
just don't
theory,
see it.
Sean. This is my theory. And the reason I think that this helps Trump's case is because this feeds into the narrative that the media, the deep state, the Democrats have been out to get him since day one. This came out like they're doing this now when he's talking about reelection. So my theory is, again, because I think it just feeds into that narrative that Trump's the actual to vote for the people. They're trying to suppress Trump, and that's who the people want. And so that's why I think his ratings have gone up so much. And he's just getting free publicity right now just for showing up to an indictment. Like I don't know if you heard it, he made like his aide said he made $7 million in campaign funds just for showing up. So I don't know, man. He's getting a lot of notoriety. I mean, they said he's the popular candidate for the Republican Party now, but he's got DeSantis by like almost 30%.
And DeSantis hasn't even officially entered the race yet.
No, DeSantis, I don't think he's spoken out much about this whole thing, has he?
Well, he had already said
I haven't heard any statements from him.
Well, what he said. So what he said last week was that his staff was not going to, if there was going to be any extradition, his staff was not going to be a part of it.
I think I saw that.
And
yeah, I did see that.
I don't know if that's the high road or if that's just being professional courtesy or what that is, or aiding and abetting, whatever you want to call it. But to me, to go back to your question, Sean, to me this is what I see, and it kind of ties in with what Travis said. This is playing the victim, like Travis said. This is playing the victim card to the utmost. So what can I? 100%. I mean, there's nothing about. I mean, whether you believe him or not, there's nothing you can refute. To me, there's nothing you can refute about this. Timing, terrible. Timing's terrible. Okay, he's making headway. He's gaining popularity. So what you're going to rattle. And I was watching a little bit of CNN tonight, and they actually had a Republican on there that they're interviewing, and she's like, this is the wrong, and she blatantly said, this is the wrong direction for the Republican Party. And what he's doing is he's rattling, I don't know if the term she used was deep bass or the bottom of the bass, or but it was derogatory in sounding and saying he's appealing now to the lowest common denominator. And I don't buy into that, because I believe and this is what confuses me. I don't think Colby's still on. Colby, if you're on, I'd love to see your input on this. But, to me, I mean, I believe that there are enough educated people who are out there who still, even through all of this, still want to support Donald Trump as a viable candidate for president. Like I said earlier, I think anybody else, they go away. You're indicted. And
here's what something else I want to address, because it was in our poll question. In your all's opinion, and I'll tell you mine, is Donald Trump above the law, though? Should he get charged for this? Should he face something for this? It's obviously did something wrong. I don't think this was made up. I 100% believe this probably happened.
Mm-hmm.
But, innocent until proven guilty. But I don't think he should be above the law just because of who he is. I don't think anybody should get a pass just because of the amount of money they have or the notoriety they have, or whatever the case may be.
I still want to know how they're going to get around the statute of limitations.
That's a good point.
We brought that up. We brought that up 2 weeks ago, and I forgot I'm pretty sure that the statute of limitations was 4 years, and we're well past that. We're well past that.
Yeah.
I don't know. Of course, this is where we need the counselor.
That would be an Alex.
That's an Alex question.
That's a very good point.
Alex, he'll probably end up.
We may revisit this. I'm sure it's going to be in the news for a while.
Yeah, but and the other thing I think that Travis and I were pointing out, and this is going to be kind of our transition here. This to us, and Sean, your opinion. I want to hear your opinion on this too. Is it's like what I call the whole Wizard of Oz effect. Don't look at the man behind the curtain. He's not important. Don't look at the man over there behind the curtain. In the meantime, when you look at what's going on around the world, when you look at these deals deals that China is making with Saudi Arabia, that they're making with, I believe it was it Korea or whoever, about all this, these oil deals and devaluing the American dollar, and how it's a smoke and mirror show to me. Here, dumb Americans, go watch this over here. Here's your beloved Donnie. Go worship at the feet of the golden statue and don't pay attention to what's going on over here in the background as we take you out of the picture. I don't know what your guys' thought is on that.
So I would like to start this off. So this was 3 days ago. This is a guy I follow on Instagram. He covers a lot of like crypto and macroeconomic stuff. And he kind of gave like a whole list of everything that's happened. This was 3 days ago. So there's been more I think there's been more announcements of this kind of stuff. There's a whole list here. And this is stuff that, it's kind of being covered up by the whole Trump deal. Saudi Arabia enters trade alliance with China, Russia, India, Pakistan, and 4 Central Asian countries to step further away from reliance on the U.S. dollar.
Yep.
2. China and France complete first LNG gas trade using Chinese yuan, ending reliance on the U.S. dollar for energy trades. 3. China and Brazil to settle trades in their own currencies, ditching the U.S. dollar. 4. Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, BRICS, are developing a new currency, State Duma Deputy Chairman says. 5. Saudi Arabia partners with China to build a Chinese oil refinery for 83.7 billion won. There's more. 6. Kenya signs deal with Saudi Arabia and UAE to buy oil with Kenyan shillings instead of U.S. dollars. 7. President of Kenya tells citizens to get rid of U.S. dollars. 8. Association of Southeast Asian countries considers dropping the U.S. dollar, euro, yen, and British pound for local currency financial settlements. 9. El Salvador president officially signs bill eliminating all taxes on income, property, and capital gains. That's something different. Elizabeth Warren is on an anti-crypto re-election campaign. India to settle trade in India rupees with certain countries instead of U.S. dollars. Chinese yuan surpasses the euro to become Brazil's second largest currency in foreign reserves. U.S. government to selling Bitcoin. Hong Kong regulators assist, blah, blah, blah. Hang on, I'm seeing if there's anything more relevant to that. Those were kind of the big things regarding other countries ditching the U.S. dollar. And I think there were some more recent developments. I don't have them in front of me, but I was kind of scrounging through it. But
so
the other thing I'm seeing is we're getting away from oil being bought with dollars, and that is a big problem.
Well, when you look at, I'm looking back over a 5-year period over the Chinese RMB versus the American dollar, and
I know it's gained momentum.
Oh yeah, so back in 2000 or back in 2021. They went through a serious dip, and right now they're making a huge surge right now. And so, one U.S. dollar, as of today, one U.S. dollar is equal to 6.8 Chinese RMB. And I can tell you, I think it was actually the Chinese, back when we were, when we went to China, we made money coming back because the exchange rate at that time was so volatile that when we went over, it was high, and when it came back, it was I forgot how, my math's not good, but now China has acquired. When you look at these Central American markets too, and you mentioned El Salvador and all that, China is gobbling up a lot of territory, a lot of real estate in Central America right now.
They're making ties with Mexico. They're making ties with Venezuela. They're really getting in.
I was in Costa Rica 4 or 5 years ago, and they had just broken ground there in San Jose on this mammoth soccer state. Soccer in Central America is God. And this stadium rivaled anything. Just the framework, driving around this framework was just massive. It was like almost looking at like something out of a movie. Just how it was like so ungodly big. It looked like it could hold maybe 100,000 people, between 70,000 and 100,000 people. And I said, what's that? And they said, oh, that's the new soccer stadium that the Chinese are building. And I'm like, what? He said, oh yeah, Chinese are investing everywhere in Costa Rica. So, I mean, is this the beginning of us getting weaseled out? Or, I mean, of us
Well,
getting
can I add? I mean, you kind of got to raise your eyebrow at all this because also too, if we look at our own country, we've had three large banks just collapse, and there are potentially more that are going to collapse. There's more talks of recession. McDonald's just announced it's going to be doing layoffs, and yet I'm seeing articles here: Biden approval ratings near highest level in months. This was 14 hours ago on Newsweek, and he just announced, what was it, yesterday, that our economy is at a 40-year high. Was that yesterday he made that
yes, that
statement?
was yesterday.
And,
I want to know. I want to
you
know where
gotta
he's getting his. I want to know where he's getting his numbers from. First of all,
you kind of got to raise your eye. I got it. It just doesn't make sense to me. There's so much conflicting information, but you see these moves from these other countries. If you just take a look, not even at our own banks collapsing, but if you look at all these news of just all these countries moving away from the U.S. dollar, which is the world reserve currency, and I don't think people realize just how important that is. That's a huge problem, and that is going to have a huge effect on our economy and our lives. I
yeah.
mean, we've enjoyed the comforts of that for so long, and it's going to be interesting.
Well,
And the U.S.'s response to that is, I think you can have a whole topic on that because
when you look
that's
at
how wars are started, man.
you look at China. Go to your grocery store. Go to your grocery store and see what things look like. You know, I think because we buy and
We
I'm
still haven't controlled it. We still can't control inflation.
no, and on top of that, the supply chain is still effed up. You know, the supply chain because we're still having. I mean, this trade war still going on with China. We're still. I'll give you something basic. We buy a lot of Chinese. We buy a lot of Asian noodles and a lot. And one. I feel so sorry for my son. So there's this brand of sriracha sauce that is made that I think this child was raised on that you used to be able to buy at Walmart and just certain products like certain products
Are you
from
talking about the green bottle top sriracha?
yes
You can't find it
you
anywhere.
anywhere you cannot find it
Yeah.
anywhere and it's simple things like that and when you look at your like a lot of like your like your cheap electronic toys. The stuff it's like when you looked at this. We had mentioned this back around the holiday season. There wasn't really anything on Black Friday for you to really shake your head at. I mean, there wasn't there because
No, it was kind of sad.
well, and because look at where a large percentage of that stuff is coming from. It's coming from China. And they're not. I don't think for the least bit that they're not gonna blink twice about putting this in the poorhouse. And to me, it's not a good. It's the way things are shaping up right now. And then with Russia's looking at China, looking at us, looking at them. I mean this when you sit, I mean, you could sit back and freak out about this all you want to, but we're not paid that much money to sit back and worry about it. But you look at how everything is playing out and how things are slowly beginning to slip out of our fingers. I mean, we were the superpower, and to me, right now, we're looking like a third-rate agricultural experiment that we were back in 1789. We're not.
And look at this. It seems like the lines are. If we're going to talk, just think of the war in general. It feels like the lines are being drawn in the sand even more. Like Finland just announced they're joining NATO.
Yep.
Russia responds by moving troops to the border. Like that's a pretty big move there.
If they and that they Sweden and here that was the other thing I was reading that Sweden wants to join NATO too. But what is it? It's Turkey and Hungary that are making their. I don't know how Turkey and Hungary play into this, but it said something about their parliaments are blocking the vote to allow Sweden to join. I really don't know what that's about. But if Sweden joins NATO, I think that'll be the straw that breaks the camel's back. I think that's the because when you look at all these other countries that are
Everyone's picking sides right now, and
right,
it's happening at a very fast rate.
right, right.
That concerns me. Not to be fear mongering, but that really does concern me.
Hey,
And I don't
we're not
see
the last people
any.
to do that. So
I haven't seen really any real diplomacy
no,
happening.
that's the
The
other
only
thing.
diplomacy I've seen is China's visit, and you could take that as diplomacy, or you could take that as uh, I
Friendly
don't know what
visit,
you take it as,
friendly
but
visit.
yeah, but
Where I mean, and let's look at how these lines just briefly. Let's look at how these lines are being drawn. You know, when you look at superpowers, us, Russia, China over there, India drifting over to that side, even though, and that's another thing. China and India have had a hate relationship for years. For
yeah, that kind of surprised
years.
me.
Okay? You've got Japan who's kind of sitting back and twiddling their thumbs. You've got the Aussies. The Aussies have been rattling the war saber for what now? 3 years, Travis, over the whole Hong Kong thing, or not Hong Kong, Taiwan,
Yeah,
over the whole Taiwan thing. You've got the British who their house is not in order. They've got enough political. They've got their version of what we've got going on here. They've got their version of that going on in Britain right now. And you've got the French who are doing what the French do best, nothing, and sitting back and so who do we really have? Who's the big kid in our corner? Do we have a big kid in our corner?
we really don't. I mean, if you all of NATO like together, I guess, but
Well, that doesn't to me that doesn't amount to a hill of beans. That it really doesn't. When
it's
you
not looking great. It's not looking great.
I mean NATO back in the 50s was something to behold. When the Cold War really started kicking in and you had NATO form and then you had the Warsaw Pact, we made the Warsaw Pact look like, the Mickey Mouse Club because you had the Soviet Union, and the reason why the Soviet Union lost the Cold War, one of the reasons was they couldn't keep up with our defense spending. Okay? And now you've had two of the last three presidents who have cut back on defense spending so much, and you guys know more about this than I do, that we're not even, to me, I don't even think we're a factor in the game now. I mean, all this talk, and the talk with the Canadians about nuclear subs and all that stuff too, and I don't know. I really don't, and I'm with you, Travis. I don't want to be a fear monger either, but to me,
Where
there's
does this go?
yeah. Sean, what do you think?
Um, it is actually pretty interesting to kind of sit back and look at. You know, especially with everything that kind of is going on in my life and where I live, because things are kind of a little bit different out here. Excuse me, sorry guys. Going far, is back to when we were talking about like the Trump thing. Like, I don't know about like where you guys live or what the landscape looks like, but around here, like we don't hear anything about Trump, and it's for a reason. It's Los Angeles. Like,
People
he's not
don't,
mentioned.
yeah.
But I remember back home, like in Missouri, you'd see the signs, you'd see everything. Like it's two different worlds, and I think the same thing goes for kind of like the political climate, especially for something like this, where I look at it from a excuse me, when you had mentioned inflation and how prices are changing, things are crazy expensive at the grocery store here. Um, and it makes me like worry, honestly, about if something crazy was to kip off, like how, oh shit, there's nothing here, how soon it would kind of take effect, like versus back home. Like, this sounds silly, but if I was to go back to Pike County, um it's a community aspect. People could homestead. People would figure it out. Like
Oh,
that's
yeah.
not a viable thing to do out here where I live.
Yeah, people can't afford food, or if they're shortage of food, they starve.
Right. And quite
It's a
literally,
real issue.
that's and out here, that's definitely what it is. Like I'm
Like
not
the
gonna be able
cost
to
of
grow.
food in Venezuelan grocery stores is ridiculous.
Yeah, like and so when we look at some of these changes, it makes me want to kind of go back. I'm actually so this is kind of a little bit off topic, but um right now I'm in a very deep study learning about the Vietnam War and the political climate and what was happening in the world during the Vietnamese War. And it's actually kind of interesting because a lot of the stuff that we're kind of talking about is very similar to the things
It's
that we're
very
talking about
similar.
now.
I'm sure, yeah.
Very similar.
You know, part of the reason why we engaged in the Vietnam War anyway, and the way I look at this is like I think of it as Ukraine, right? Like that's kind of like the thing I'm kind of thinking about is we were so heavily influenced in Vietnam because we didn't want what? We didn't want communism to come to Vietnam.
Right.
And in this case, we don't want Russia to overtake and absorb the Ukraine, which ironically was the same. The USSR and China were the big bads back then. Who are the big bads right now? Russia and China. So as things, that old saying, as things change, they always stay the same. It's and the president, what was going on back then? Well, you guessed it. Um, in inflation. Why? Because the president, President Johnson, year after year guess what he asked people? Hey, guess what? Things are going good, but we're going to have the first time around, it was a 6% tax increase.
Mm-hmm.
The following year, it was a 10% tax increase because at the time he wanted to preach the Great Society.
The Great
America's
Society.
the Great Society,
Yep.
and we can afford it. And then after, a year or two, he's like,
Yeah,
we can't really afford it.
Medicare,
I'm glad you brought this up. I am glad you brought that up. That's
Medicare,
and-
Medicaid,
yeah.
and
you want to know what else happened in America? The federal interest rate went up. I mean, these are the things that we are seeing now. So it's interesting because what I have read and the stuff that I've done for learning about Vietnam, it's very, very, very similar. We have Vietnam was a big time where colleges were very vocal in protest and loud. People were dodging the draft. I have a feeling there'd be a lot of draft dodgers if that came to fruition this time around. I seriously wouldn't doubt it. So it's interesting. It's very interesting to kind of see all the different things.
I want to throw
that
a couple
have
numbers at you. And you talked about inflation.
Mhm.
So I can tell you that and I think I've shared this story before. When I became a teenager, I started my own lawn mowing business, or just around my little hometown there. And after I'd made my first 1,000 in my first, I mowed a lot. My dad said, "You ought to put that in a short-term CD, a 36-month CD, 3 years." At that time,